of EFCC and government to fight corruption? From your own assessments, how well has this administration fared in the fight against corruption?
Well, if there's something that you can praise this administration about, it is its efforts in the war against corruption. And I think the president, given his background, also enjoys tremendous goodwill across the world. They see him as an untainted leader, and to that extent, many countries are prepared to assist Nigeria to win the war against corruption. I think that bringing in someone like Magu was a masterstroke on the part of the president, because he was the one who carried out the biggest investigations in EFCC history, talking about those politically exposed persons, the class of 1999, those governors. You know, he was one who investigated them. He was the one who investigated Saraki.
Under Noribadu then.
Yes, they started the EFCC together, and he was the top investigator. He may not be the type of person who excites you the way he speaks.
No,
we all have different gifts.
But
when it comes to investigation, it's a special talent that he has. My own concern is whether he can impart that skill on the people who work under him. So that should be his challenge, because so that once, even when he's gone, we will still have many more Magus coming out of EFCC with that incorruptible nature. You know, just like Nuhu Ribadu. Yes. These are people, you can't compromise him. You can't. That's why I'm sure the president went for him, that look, this man has a record, untainted record. You can't bring money and expect to compromise him. You need that kind of figure to lead your war against corruption. So, and the EFCC, in terms of the aggression that this government has brought into the war, you've got to give them credit. People are scared now to do certain things that they used to do in the past, because you know you will be caught. You know, sometimes people accuse them of being overzealous, but it's all in the desire to get results. So when you look at what Magu has done and the number of convictions, the EFCC has done very well under his watch. You know, so, and you've got to give credit to this government, because Buhari said, I will not interfere in your work. A government that can put its own head of service on trial, a government that can put its own secretary to government on trial, you cannot say that government is not a government that really means well in the war against corruption. A government that can even convict members of its own party. So that is what we want to see, not somebody sitting somewhere and say, Magu, don't touch that person. Don't touch that person, because that's wrong.
And so, some people will tell you that all the achievements that Mr. Magu has lifted, they are audio achievements, and the war against corruption by, being championed by this administration is a kind of ruse. That's what they know them for, is like, it's a kind of waging war against their political enemy. Let's say you are in APC now. If you are not in the camp of the powers that be within APC, there's a tendency that EFCC will come for you. That forget the fact that that story that they are the same party, they are in the same party. That this war against corruption by the administration of Muhammadu Buhari is selective.
That is what people were saying initially, but with the
they are still saying it till now.
With the numbers we have been seeing, we have seen Magu convict those in the party. You think it's easy for somebody to say you're a thief, and then they send you into jail, and then maybe when you now get bail from the court, you now say, I'm free? It's not easy. So I have to praise him, because there's something that he said, reintegrating those Yahoo boys into the system, either for him to train them to become useful for us in future.
Use that their skill.
Use their skill, because it means that he is also
Some of
looking at
those
the
guys
nature.
are fantastic
That's
IT
the
people.
IT guys.
They
You
hack
understand?
into the American
They will hack
system.
into the
They
system
do, they do visa for
for
themselves.
them,
Citizenship, green
for
card.
themselves.
Nigerians.
Those are the hard talent.
you
So
know,
we can use them
can
a
use
different
them.
way.
You know,
That's
this
why
is.
I agree that they
because
can use them.
because you can see,
sit
you know,
down somewhere.
when he
Taking
said that,
Oluwole to America.
you
Hack into their
understand.
system to do green card.
So immediately he said that, I said, wow. So if he can reintegrate these guys, make them, use them for his own work.
See, people will say what they like, but war against corruption
It's
is
not
an
easy.
easy war.
It's not
Obasanjo
easy.
just said it that you will step on toes if you truly want to fight corruption. And even some of his own friends too. Some of his friends were involved in corruption. You know, the truth is, are they going to say that the former secretary to the government of the federation, Babashi Lawal, is not in the president's camp? He has been the president's supporter for ages. Are they saying he was not in the camp?
Even the head of service.
Yes, we put on trial. You know, the president told Magu, the moment Magu was finished with the investigation and went to the president said, you can go ahead and put her on trial. So this is the thing. But you see, even the way we are now, there are people, no matter what we do, they will not appreciate what we do. You know, if you like, somebody said, Babajide, if you like, start selling, giving prosperity to people for free. Those who will still abuse you will abuse you.
Yes, exactly.
We are saying that in the area of war against corruption, it is no longer business as usual. Even journalists now know that some monies that they used to transfer to you before
Are
that you just
tinted.
take. You know that these days, if you are not careful, you could be made to even refund the money.
Exactly.
Some journalists who they sent money to them in 2015, remember, EFCC made them to cough out the money.
Okay.
So this is the thing.
All right, joining us now is journalist Deji Badimosi for more discussion on anti-corruption fight in Nigeria. Deji, how would you assess President Buhari's government in terms of fighting corruption in the last 5 years?
First off, let me just say I love what Babajide said there, that even journalists too are very careful now.
Yes, no.
I mean, no, but it goes to tell you, I think that sums up how much of a difference we have seen, you know, in this administration. And to be candid, just as Babajide and Asuko said, if there's one thing you must give to this administration, I think it's a fight against corruption. And what I always tell people is this: look, if governments of the past, imagine if we had waged a genuine fight against corruption like this from 1999 to this period, this country would probably not be the same. I mean, the level of corruption we'll have would have gone down, because we must tell ourselves the truth. This is not a fight. This fight is not a 100-meter dash. It is not a fight that can be waged by one administration alone. There's still a lot of work to do. This is a government, for the first time in the history of democracy, or probably even under the military, because we never saw a genuine fight against corruption under the military.
Yes.
This is the government that for the first time was able to investigate and take up the military itself, investigate corruption in the military. For the first time, we're seeing generals, military generals, being brought or being charged for corruption. It has never happened before. So, other than the politically exposed persons, to take on the military is not an easy thing, especially when this president is also a former military man. Usually, you would say there's this comradeship among the military, but the government has decided to damn the consequence, and we're seeing the result. If not for this government, we would never have known, for instance, that the kind of corruption that was taking place in the military was so monumental. Ayo, it's something that no one ever imagined was going to happen. As we speak today, if not for the fact that one of them got released recently, by now we would have 3 former governors, cooling their heels in prison. So today we have 2 former governors in prison, Today, we have so many people convicted for corruption. Of course, I understand when people say the fight is selective. But you know what I tell people when they say the fight is selective? When people tell me, why is the government not going against this person? Why is the government not going against that person? I say one thing. If you think the government is selective, just hold on. This government would leave. When the next government comes, let that next government now probe this government. So if we've had that kind of situation, if for instance, we had a situation where the government that took over from Obasanjo probed and, indicted and charged, people for corruption, some of the open corruption that we saw then, we probably would not be where we are today. Yes. If the same thing had happened under the Jonathan administration or the Yaradua administration, things would probably have been different. So there's no question at all that this government has done well in the fight against corruption. Now, can the government do more? I believe the government can do more. Can the EFCC do more? Absolutely, no doubt. But we can't deny the fact that it's not for nothing that the president is made the anti-corruption champion in Africa. It's not for nothing. So, and we can't also deny the fact that somehow our image as a country is being redeemed at the global stage. Nigeria is beginning to regain some of its lost respect. So for me, Ayo, I think this government has done well in the fight against corruption. It can still do more. We still want the government to do more. But my only worry is when this government leaves, I hope the government that comes after it would be able to sustain the tempo. Whether the government is PDP, whether it is APC, whatever that government would be, I hope it is able to sustain the tempo. And I hope the people of Nigeria would now say, look, we can't take anything less than what we have had, over the past 8 years when this government would have gone.
Now, Deji, where do you want to see improvements? Now, when you're talking about the fight against corruption in Nigeria now, EFCC is at the vanguard, and that's like on the federal side. We're talking about states and local governments.
Yes.
Man, what is happening there is
very good, Ayo. Now, this is where I have a problem. You would have expected that governors themselves, state governments, would have replicated what we are seeing at the federal level, because the amount of corruption, and it's so unfortunate. Nigerians are not looking at the big picture. They are concentrated on what happens at the center. But the kind of corruption that takes place at the state level, quite monumental, Ayo. So then you ask yourself, why is it that these governors are not able, for instance, to come up with their own state EFCC? Kano State came up with something like that, but we know that agency is not, it's just not,
effective.
It's not up to scratch. So why is it that state assemblies, for instance, even if the governor is not coming up with a bill, an executive bill now to say, look, we want to set up our own anti-corruption agency, why are the state lawmakers not coming up with such bill? Why can't we have Lagos State Anti-Corruption Agency, Kaduna State Anti-Corruption Agency, Abia State Anti-Corruption Agency? Even if at the end of the day, those agencies do not do much, but at least you would have set a precedent, you would have set something, you would have set the ball rolling, so that if your government doesn't take that agency seriously, or the agency refuses to perform under your government, the government that would come after would make the agency work, which is what we have seen with the EFCC at the federal level. Obasanjo started the EFCC. Initially, it was doing well. We know at some point it derailed. Under the Jonathan administration, the EFCC almost died. But look at the way the EFCC has been revived under this government. So you would expect the same thing at the state level and even at the local government level. Because, Ayo, what I tell people about corruption is this. No matter how much the EFCC does, no matter what the ICPC does, if as Nigerians we do not change and we do not take up the fight and own it, things would not change.
Exactly.
They can only do so
Wow,
much.
Deji,
That's just the bottom line.
thank
so
you.
much,
Exactly.
Deji.
Multi-award winning broadcast journalist
Yes, exactly.
Deji Badimosi. Well,
Thank you for your time, my brother.
Yes, the war
talk
is in our
about
hands.
the war on corruption. Spoke with the EFCC chairman. Spoke with the Deji Badimosi, and to cap it all up, I think in the next 3 years we expect that the administration will do more, so that at the end of the day there will be a standard that has been set to this fight against corruption.
Yes, we expect a lot more effort on their part. We look forward to more convictions. We look forward to more enduring institutions being given back to that will make corruption unattractive, that will make corruption even dangerous to the perpetrators.
All right, moving on now. In our collective march to greatness as a country, now economic prosperity, despite abundant human and natural resources, remains a mirage. But if economy is a life wire in any country, then we need to up our game in that regard. In his June 12th speech, President Muhammadu Buhari restates his resolve to take Nigeria out of the poverty. So, how do we help him achieve this lofty objective? Asuko,
How do we help the president? Well,
the economy right now,
is this
the
morning.
poverty level.
This morning, I was reading where job will be about 39 million people will lose their jobs because of,
In Nigeria.
And
Do we have up to 39 million people that
aha,
get fully employed people?
hold on. Then,
So,
and don't forget, Nigeria is also number one poverty capital, in Africa. And when you now start looking at all these indices and then the effort that the government is doing, trying to see how they can reduce the number of people who are poor, is like a tip of the iceberg. There's nothing inside that we can say that, the people can be moved away from poverty. But like I keep saying, when this government came in, the president, or even last year, the president said we have to start growing what we eat and eat what we grow. He also mentioned that today. But we need the president to make sure that these words are in words and also in deed. If the president does not need to travel, let him not travel. If the president needs the governors to cut their aides and their political appointees, let them do that.
Well,
If the president needs
to them.
even himself first, I'm even talking about himself first. If the president needs to cut down the MDAs, the ministries, and let him do that.
They have said, that one in motion.
If the president needs to also start looking at how people can go back to agriculture, which is the most important now, because we need to eat. And once people are moving into agriculture, we know we have, and we are exporting, we'll be making money. And if we now have money to start investing in infrastructure, then from there, people will start going into jobs, construction jobs again. Then the government also have to find a way to increase the electricity sector, because to help in the electricity, because so many small companies, so many small medium scale enterprises depend on electricity. So if the president can look at electricity, can look at agriculture, I believe that we can move a little bit away from that poverty level, because so many people, Ayo, you need to see during this pandemic, for the first time I saw people, Nigerians, holding placards that they were hungry.
They can no longer pretend.
Because they couldn't. And I almost shed tears. Because this is the Nigeria that we are, and some people, that was 1 week ago.
It's as if this pandemic just eroded whatever achievements that the government might have made. We closed our borders for some months. we stopped importation of rice, and farmers went to the farm, and we started this revolution in the rice sector, in the agri sector, all of a sudden. And what is happening? The COVID-19 has eroded those gains right now.
The truth is, we are not alone. COVID-19 is bad news across the world. Yes. And countries have already slipped into recession. South Africa slipped into recession just before the pandemic began. You can see that France, shortly after the pandemic began, France slipped into recession as well. America is going through trying times at this time. Trump was doing very well. He was boasting about the fact that he had created so many jobs.
Unemployment went
suddenly,
down 4%.
Suddenly, the pandemic came and people began to lose their jobs. So what we should be talking about now is how do we get around those problems and keep the country afloat even after the pandemic is gone. Because when you look at the omen is not good at all. States are going to face serious problems. The vice president talked about that in his speech, because close to 200 billion of the distributable revenue from the federation account would not come to the states on account of Nigeria not earning enough from oil, because the pandemic came and it led to a slide in demand for our oil. So states will not be able to earn what they used to, they will receive what they used to receive from the federation account, which will affect those states negatively. Maybe some of them will think about job cuts and all that. So the truth is, it's not our country alone that is affected by this, but our strategy to emerge out of the pandemic, is a stronger nation economically, is what we should focus on. We focus on agriculture. Even during the pandemic, I saw clearly that a lot of the rice being distributed was made in Nigeria. The president has said that he will not commit cash foreign exchange to the importation of rice. We were the number one consumer of imported rice, until now. But that has changed. We have seen now that we can look inwards and reap the reward of looking inwards. More and more rice mills, integrated rice mills are coming up, and our people are making money from that. So it's a good thing that the government was focused on that. So it has to, even during the last time when we had recession, it was only the agri sector that was not affected, that didn't record negative growth.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
This government has to focus on boosting agriculture, along with its focus on improvement of infrastructure. And I'm sure that with time, we'll get it. Because one of the best ways to boost the economy is to focus on infrastructure.
And ultimately, when we look at what this government, in terms of the economic committee that was set up by Mr. President, have you felt the impact in any way? The one headed by the vice president and the one that was set up by the president some time ago?
Well, to me, I've not really felt it, So, and I want to believe most Nigerians too, because this thing is going to take time for us to begin to feel the impact of any committee that has been set up by the president. It was before the last election that we got to see the vice president going around, trying to see how at least the poorest of the poor will be able to feel the impact of the government. But for now, this pandemic has changed the narrative, has changed all the plans that all governments, not only in Nigeria, all governments are now re-strategizing. How do they keep their countries afloat? How do they keep their countries safe? Because there's one thing, if it's only a hungry man that will always cause problem. You know, so if you are hungry, you cannot just say you want to sit down somewhere. You must eat. People must eat. If not, there will be crisis, there will be problem. And you know, and that is why we are saying that all parts of Nigeria has to be safe. So that people who are farmers will be able to go to their farm and farm. But as it stands, Ayo, the committee that has been set up, we've not felt the impact, but I know that the Vice President and his team will be working out a lot of strategy on how they can keep us, because salaries, we are just talking some years back about 30,000 minimum wage. I'm not sure that will be visible anymore because NLC too.
The law already.
It means that some people will have to lose their jobs. You know, we have to be. It's in danger because it means that once they start paying you,
the government is not earning enough.
How much?
So where will the money come?
So where will it come from? So people should just have that at the back of their mind that 30,000, yes, is now law, but will government be able to sustain it? Will government be able to
implement it?
You know. So let's just see how their committee will, come up with the things they will come up with.
Jide, moving forward now, how will government grapple with the post-COVID-19 economic downturn?
That's why the president has a long list of brilliant minds to choose from. He set up a committee, an advisory committee. So we have to be creative. We have to think out of the box, come up with ideas that will make our country stronger economically. These times need inventive people who are creative, because the truth is there are not many options there for us. We need to boost the SMEs so that you can keep more and more of our people working. We also need to improve our capacity to make money from taxation. A lot of Nigerians who should be paying taxes are not paying. Many countries of the world depend heavily on tax revenue. We are not getting enough. We are not getting enough. I believe that we can do much more, than simply 4 to 5 trillion contribution by the FRS to annual revenue or the budget of our country.
All right, joining us live is the Senior Special Assistant on Public Affairs to Mr. President, that's Mr. Ajuri Ngelale. Thank you for joining us, Ajuri.
It's very much a humbling privilege to be with all of you. Thank you for having me, and happy Democracy Day.
All right. How do you intend to mitigate the effects of COVID-19 on Nigeria economy?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's for us to appreciate that what we are doing now is simply an expansion of what we've been working very hard on. President Buhari has been working very hard on over the last 5 years when we talk about economic diversification and making sure that we're doing the things we need to do in terms of enhancing agricultural production, enhancing the availability of credit facilities to our MSMEs and our farmers, and also, of course, really investing heavily in the development of our hard infrastructure. That's, of course, roads, bridges, railways, airports, seaports, power plants, dams, and the like. And then, of course, continuing to deepen what we're doing in terms of soft infrastructure. You talk about the regulatory reforms. We know over the course of the last 5 years that we've done so much in terms of the ease of doing business, moving up 39 places and being named 2 out of the last 3 years as a top 10 most improving nation in the world on the World Bank's ease of doing business rankings. But now, when you talk about the post-COVID-19 economy, this administration has been very, very clear with Nigerians in that this is an opportunity, an unprecedented opportunity to turn this crisis into an opportunity, into a great opportunity to fundamentally reform the Nigerian economy. Now, the president constituted the Economic Sustainability Committee, which you alluded to in your preamble. Chair, Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo, of course, having all of the key economic leaders there, CBN Governor, NNPC, GMD, Minister of Finance, and the ministers of the very critical job-creating ministry. Talk about the Ministry of Works, Agriculture, Education, Trade and Investment, Transportation, and the like. Now, they just, of course, I'm sure those who were watching recent developments saw that just yesterday, the vice president and his team submitted the report to the president. And essentially what you have are a set of very concrete and tangible and practical solutions to ensure that we create sustainable that would attack poverty in a stimulus-like fashion, which means that it's not one of those things where you develop a plan and then you take your time to gradually implement it. This is something where this economic sustainability plan is focused on making sure that within 12 months, all the envisaged jobs in the plan would have been fulfilled by Nigerians. So, for example, the thrust across sectors is our people must be the ones to rebuild our nation across sectors. So that means we're dealing with 100% wholly indigenous Nigerian companies, employing 100% wholly indigenous Nigerian labor, using 100% wholly indigenous Nigerian raw materials. So if you're doing roads, you're sourcing your bitumen from Nigeria, you're sourcing your sand and all the various raw materials, so that we create that multiplying impact, both in terms of creating direct jobs and indirect jobs all across the country, all across the economy. So in specific terms now, the way it breaks down is we looked at multiple sectors. So dealing with, of course, agriculture, where you're going to have a massive bulk of the jobs coming from. The vice president, also not just as the chairman of the Economic Sustainability Committee, but as the chairman also of the National Economic Council, works very closely with the state governors across party affiliations and all of that, all 36 state governors. What the outcome has been of those consultations is that they agreed, in terms of the agricultural component of the plan, to give between 20,000 and 100,000 of hectares of land in all states of the Federation. So we're not talking of zones now, we're talking of every state of the Federation. Well, once they're giving us the land, our own is to now employ millions of young Nigerians to execute an unprecedented land clearing and cultivation scheme that would essentially see them clearing the land, cultivating the land, but not just cultivating for the sake of cultivating, but targeting high-value export commodities like cocoa, like beef, like dairy, all these things that we have been missing opportunities on developing over the course of the last 40 years. This is the moment when we can now take charge and get it done. We have the political consensus, working with the state governors, working with the National Assembly. We have all the support we require, and now we're ready to get the nation back to work. So that's an area where we're hoping to create about 10 million jobs. Then you go to power, off-grid power. I'm sorry?
No, go on.
Oh, I should go on. Okay.
Exactly.
The off-grid power solution is a major component part. So essentially what you have is in conjunction with the founding ethos, which is people rebuilding this country, we have worked with, we have a very brilliant local engineers working at the National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, NASENI, for example, working with technical partners that have the capacity to produce, to manufacture locally, and of course distribute and maintain off-grid solar hybrid home power solutions, where you will now be able to get 5 million, produce and maintain and distribute 5 million solar home systems for 5 million rural dwellings, which of course is going to impact the lives of about 25 million rural dwellers. But the key is that the construction, the manufacturing, the maintenance and the distribution is all going to be done by Nigerians, for Nigerians. And that is a major component part of this economic sustainability plan. And then you will go into housing,
Mr.
which is
Jury,
really, really important for us. We know we have a
I know
massive
you
housing
could go
deficit in this
on and on and on. Ajuri,
Thank you so much.
Because when you look at it in pen and paper, looking so sweet, sounding so interesting and everything, but it's just how it will get to the table of the common man.
Exactly.
That's my biggest concern here.
That is the concern of all Nigerians. Lofty ideas, but when will it now get to my turn? When will it get to me? So that once I get to the market, I shouldn't be struggling to buy things, But once I get home, I should not be saying I want to buy fuel and put in pass my neighbor, So people want to really feel especially now that after this pandemic has really turned things around for people. Plans are all gone. Nobody is thinking about the plans that they made in January, So the government has a lot of work to do. So with the likes of Ajuri, Well, I wish him good luck.
Njide?
Yeah, there's pretty much nothing to say. We wish the government good luck, and Nigerians will be watching to see what progress
We'll make it in the next
the
3 years.
government can make in the next. The economy is important for everyone, so we can't trifle with the economy.
All right, I have joining us Mr. Nemeka Obiareri. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Buhari.
How would you assess the economic policy of this administration?
The direction.
But, I just listened to Ajuri Galili, list out, monthly number of things they want to do over the last how many years now. See, brother, let me tell you this. Let us go back to April 2017. The federal government of Nigeria launched with fanfare the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, April 2017. They had plans of things they wanted to accomplish in 2020. We are in 2020. Now, let me list out one of those things. He just busied himself reading out things. In April 2020, they listed things they would do and accomplish by 2020, April 2017. And one of those things, I will take one sector, housing. If you look at the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, the plan of the federal government, 2020 plan, one of the things that they listed that they would accomplish was to put in place a housing fund of 1 trillion naira and to help and facilitate the construction of 2 million new housing units in Nigeria. Remember, we have a housing deficit of about 20 million units, what almost about 126 trillion naira to cover. As at 2020, if you took out time to listen to the presidential address by the president, they listed among what they accomplished about 520 something service that they've done, land services that they've done, and about 1,250,000 houses. This is a government in April 2020 launched with fanfare 114 pages Economic Recovery and Growth Plan and said to Nigerians, by 2020 we will deliver 2 million housing units to you and set up a housing fund of about 1 trillion to enable us to reduce the 20 million housing deficit in Nigeria. 3 years after, in 2020, the president read an address to us. Out of 2 million housing units, they have only been able to accomplish 1,260 housing units. Please, 1,260, all over 2 million. What percent of it? It's less than 2% of what they promised us. See, let us tell ourselves the truth. Nigeria as a country is a land blessed by God. Nigeria as a country has no reason to be the poverty headquarters of the world. Now, they talk about economic diversity, they talk about agri. I was privileged to speak to the PDP Governors Forum last year, and I told them, you don't just pipe it and mount it out with it. I'll give you an example here. In 1964, go and check the records. Nigeria had control of 45% of the global crude palm oil market. 1964. As of 1964, Nigeria had control of 45% of the global oil market. As of today, Malaysia and Indonesia came to Calabar and picked our segments. Today, Malaysia and Indonesia control about 85% of that market. Between Malaysia and Indonesia, they make about $2 billion annually for crude palm oil. Nigeria is a net importer of crude palm oil. A country so blessed by God. I will tell you this. This is an example of they keep on mounting diversification from 1999 till now. They keep on mounting diversification without doing anything. As I'm talking to you today, Nigeria that used to be 45% global is today a net importer. Our annual demand for crude palm oil is about 2.3 million metric ton per annum. The only thing we produce here is about 1 million metric ton. We import 1.5 million metric ton of palm oil every year, which is an abnormality and abnormality. What do we do? Very simple. To cover the demand gap in Nigeria, to cover the supply gap in Nigeria, will require us to plant new 700,000 hectares of terrace species. All we need to do is very simple. If you look at the south and south, which are the palm belt and the middle belt, if you bring in every local government area in Nigeria, all we need to do, if we start to take Nigeria to the 500 hectares 11 local government areas. Through private-public partnership arrangement, the federal government does not have to bring in any fiscal revenue to it, but to put in place the right programs and policies to support it. I will tell you, by 2023 December, Nigeria will be able to close the supply gap in that sector and save ourselves annually over $1 trillion that we spend in putting palm oil. From the secondary seed area to cocoa to date palm tree, let me tell you, that land with a land mass that is as big as Benue State annually exports over $100 billion worth of food and food commodities. Netherlands does not have the kind of arable land that we have in Nigeria. Everybody is concentrated on the crude palm oil, on the crude 40 that cannot even earn us up to $10 billion annually. If we are serious as a people, and we have governments at all levels in Nigeria who are serious and desirous, let me tell you, Nigeria is blessed with the best of land resources.
All right.
Nigeria is blessed with human capacity. But the problem we have.
I want to thank you. I want to thank you. We could go on and on and on, but we have limited time for this. Mr. Nemeka Obiareri, we've looked at it from the government perspective, and he has looked at it from his own critical perspective.
Exactly. Even we can use the consumer's perspective because he goes to the market, he knows what he's saying, and he has given solutions in the past, on how the government can move away from the economic downdrams, into at least, let's even be thinking about we Nigerians rather than saying we want to be importing. Emeka is a wonderful economist. If you sit down and listen to him, you won't want to leave.
One of the most daunting challenges that this administration is faced with now is insecurity. It's terrible, especially when we go down north now, what is happening in the entire northern part of the country. And you see the activities of Boko Haram in the northeast, and you come to north central and northwest, you see the activities of bandits. Yes. And in some parts of northwest, you can see bandits they are striving to take territories right now.
Oh, the truth is, if we are to assess the government on security, the government, in my view, will not score a pass mark. Yes, efforts have been made, but the results are not good enough. The results, in my view, are not good enough. You can see hope. A jury spoke passionately, and I agree with him that this is work in progress. You can see hope. You can see the direction that the government is going. You can see hope for our farmers, that they will, the people, those who take to farming will make more money than before, and know that you can see hope. But when it comes to security, I'm truly, truly worried. Look at what happened in Katsina during the week. District heads, about 12 district heads, went to the palace of the Emir of Katsina to protest. And they said, see, we are going to leave our domains. We are going to leave our domains in protest because bandits are running riot in our areas and nothing is happening. No real effort is being made to stop these bandits. We've sent special forces of the Air Force to those areas, but they are still killing people. Every day they are killing people in Faskari local government. They are killing people in Basari local government. That's in Katsina. They are killing people in Dandume. They are killing people in Sabua. They are killing people in Damusa. So how much longer can this go on? A district head was killed during the week. So they said, see, with this district head killed, it means that the rest of us are not safe. So they went to the Emir of Katsina to tell, look, we will leave. And that's what has happened in Borno State. Many of the Emirs are living in Maiduguri. They dare not go to their villages.
Left their kingdom.
No, they've left their kingdoms to go and take refuge in Maiduguri. That is the thing. Except the state capitals, I mean the local government capitals, headquarters, they are safe. But outside of the local government, they are not safe. We still need, I was reading the army statement on the killing of 81 persons you know. And what the army, what they are saying is, look, we feel bad that this has happened. But what Nigerians want to see is victory. We want victory. We want Boko Haram to be defeated. We want that nonsense to stop.
Asuko.
The government, I think the major duty of the government is the protection of life and property. And in terms of security, this government has not done well. You know, they've not done well at all because every day.
Okay, let me just stop. I think
Okay.
Dennis Amakari just
Okay.
joined us via Skype now to assess the state of security.
Expert, yeah.
He's a security expert. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us, Dennis. It's good to have you.
Thank you so much.
What can we do? What can we do? The insecurity in our land is something to worry about. What can we do that we are not doing? Or what should we do?
You know, the way we look at security in Nigeria is as if the security agencies are just there as magicians to solve this problem. Because we have to tell ourselves the truth. You know, we are all Nigerians. The security apparatus, right from independence, was set up as an architecture for a certain class of people. You know, they were taking care of the colonials, and when the colonials left, they now started taking care of Nigerians, but again, they took care of a new set of colonials who are the politicians. You know, so you find out that all the security apparatus that have been formed in the country had maintained that structure. And that structure has not worked well for everybody. You look at the police, it's the same thing. We are still having the unitary or the system where the IG is in Abuja telling people what is happening in Badagry. You cannot do that. You know, even the security agencies like the SSS, the DIA, when Babangida came and balkanized the NSO, we expected that he would have changed it, you know, to one that will serve the country, not to serve the government in power. So this is the trap that we find ourselves.
Now, let's look at what's happening in the Northeast. By now,
Yes.
Nigerians expect that the war against Boko Haram will have been won, especially with a president with a military background, an infantry officer in charge. Why are we still bogged down by this war? Why haven't we secured victory?
It is very, 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 very tricky. Let me put it that way, that, you know, when the campaigns was going on, it was said that a general who understands that area, who has even operated in that area, will solve the problem. But you see, the threat changed over time because what is happening now is not what happened when he was the commander of the troops in that times. And right now, we have an international bend to it, whereby we have ISIS and other soldiers of fortunes that have come into play. We have terrorists who are running all over West Africa, the Islamic West Africa province people. And then, of course, they are recruiting from us. Now, what do I mean by that? The major issue for insecurity is hunger and poverty. And when people are very poor and hunger is dealing with them, these terrorists are just telling them, come around, we'll pay you, we'll give you food to eat, and then we can even go around and attack towns and get loots from war and then distribute to all of you. So this is what is happening. And why is it continuing? It's continuing because we have not taken the war as our own. We are looking at the military or the other security agencies to take care of it. I remember, I don't know how many of you were during the Nigerian Civil War, but during that time, you find out that win the war. What they call win the war is one that where everybody was involved, everybody, you know, and you don't house bandits or all kinds of people, you know, in your domain. And then the police force itself is too scarce. We have ungoverned spaces. Look at the north referring to now. Some of those villages have not seen a policeman for the past 6 months. You know, and the police is not ready to hire more people. That's why we talk about state police, because these are the things that would solve this problem. But they are not. You know, so we find ourselves in it.
I want to thank you, Mr. Dennis Amakri, a security expert, talking about security. Gentlemen, you know,
I just pray that the security situation can improve. I put myself in the shoes of people in Kaduna State, where bandits are running riot, people in Katsina, people in Borno, in Yobe, in Adamawa. Some parts of Adamawa are still not safe as we speak.
Kaduna South,
I just hope that Nigeria and Niger, thank you for reminding me, Niger, Rafi local government, you know, Shiroro area in Niger. I just hope that we can protect these people better. And I'm sure they'll be grateful to the government if the government can protect them better.
I want to thank you, Asuko James. It's been a wonderful special edition. This is our Democracy Day edition.
I enjoyed myself all through, and I learned a lot today too.
All right, Bikio, thank you so much. We have to do this.
Thanks.
Gentlemen, it has been a wonderful time out on this Democracy Day special of Journalist Hangout. We appreciate our guests, analysts, and of course, our viewers at home. Join us next week for the regular episode of the program. You can also watch Journalist Hangout on our platforms showing on the screen. And on YouTube, we are on YouTube, youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Our feedback channel is Journalist Hangout at tvcnews.tv. I'm Ayodele Zubakun. God bless Nigeria, and bye for now.